There are people in your life who are like sandpaper for your soul. The colleague who talks too loudly, the family member who is always late, the friend who seems endlessly self-absorbed, and then there is a special category, a person who doesn't just annoy you, but triggers a deep, visceral, almost allergic reaction in you, the selfish person. The one who unapologetically puts their own needs first, the one who says no without a hint of guilt, the one who takes up space, makes demands, and seems completely unconcerned with what others think of them. You find them insufferable, arrogant, entitled, and your judgment of them feels clean, righteous, and absolutely true. But what if that intense emotional charge you feel has very little to do with them? What if your intense annoyance is not actually a clear perception of who they are, but an unconscious reflection of who you are not allowing yourself to be? Carl Jung gave us a name for this powerful psychological mechanism. He called it projection. It is the unconscious act of taking a part of our own inner world, a part we have disowned and pushed into our shadow, and seeing it as if it exists outside of us in another person. We do this with both our light and our darkness, but it is most noticeable with the traits we judge most harshly. Today, we are going to dive deep into the mechanics of projection. We will discover why the people who trigger you the most are not your enemies. They are your mirrors. They are your messengers, and they are, unknowingly, holding up a map that can lead you directly to the lost gold buried in your own shadow. To understand projection, we must first revisit a core principle of the psyche. The ego, your conscious sense of self, wants to maintain a consistent and acceptable self-image. For the people-pleaser, this self-image is that of the good person, kind, selfless, patient, and not demanding. This is the persona. Any trait or feeling that contradicts this self-image, such as anger, selfishness, laziness, or ambition, is deemed not me. It is declared unacceptable. But these traits do not simply disappear. They are repressed. They are pushed into the unconscious, into the shadow. But the psyche, in its drive for wholeness, does not like for these parts to remain hidden forever. It wants them to be seen. It wants them to be integrated. So, it devises a brilliant, if confusing, strategy. It takes these disowned traits from your inner world and projects them onto the screen of your outer world. It makes you see your own hidden selfishness in another person. This is the mechanism of projection. It is an unconscious defense mechanism that allows your ego to maintain its good self-image while simultaneously bringing the disowned shadow trait to your attention. The key indicator that a projection is happening is the emotional charge. It is not a simple disagreement or a mild dislike. It is a potent, visceral, almost obsessive feeling of annoyance, judgment, or even rage. This emotional intensity is the psyche's way of saying, "Pay attention, this is important, this is not just about them, this is about us." The other person becomes a walking, talking trigger, a living symbol of a part of yourself that you have refused to own. Let's make this concrete. Think back to the good girl archetype and its unspoken commandments. One of the core rules is, "Thou shalt not be selfish. Thou shalt put others first." This rule forces your natural healthy instinct for self-preservation and self-valuing into the shadow. Inside your shadow now lives a starving creature that longs to have its own needs met, to say no, to prioritize itself. But your conscious ego cannot bear to look at this selfish part of you. It would shatter your identity as a good person. So what does the psyche do? It finds someone in your external world who embodies this energy. Let's imagine a woman named Karen. Karen is a colleague of yours. She is a perfectly competent person, but she lives by a different set of rules. She leaves work at 5 p.m. sharp every single day, even if the team is behind on a project. When asked to take on extra work, she will often say, "I'm sorry, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now." She takes her full hour for lunch, and she does not answer emails during that time. She unapologetically advocates for her own ideas and asks for the resources she needs to succeed. To many people, Karen is just a professional with good boundaries. But to you, the people pleaser, she is a monster. You watch her leave at 5 p.m. while you are staying late, and you feel a hot surge of judgment. She's not a team player. You hear her say no to the boss, and you feel a mix of terror and righteous indignation. How dare she? So selfish. You see her taking a full lunch break, and you think, must be nice, with a sharp, sarcastic edge. Her very existence feels like a personal affront. This intense emotional charge is your signal. This is a projection. Karen has become the screen upon which you are projecting your own hidden selfishness. And your harsh judgment of her is in reality the harsh judgment you hold against that same part of yourself. You judge her for leaving on time because you do not allow yourself to leave on time. You judge her for saying no because you are terrified of saying no. You judge her for protecting her time and energy because you have been conditioned to believe that your time and energy are endlessly available to others. Pause with this for a moment. Think of your Karen, the person in your life who consistently triggers this feeling of how selfish. What specific actions do they take that you would never allow yourself to take? What unspoken rule of your own are they breaking? The great Swiss psychoanalyst Marie-Louise von Franz, a close colleague of Jung, said that our shadow is 90% pure gold. What she meant is that the things we push into the dark are not just negative. They are often powerful, life-giving energies that have been distorted by our fear and judgment. The selfishness you despise in Karen is, in its pure form, the gold of self-respect, boundary setting, and energy management. It is the very quality you need most to heal your burnout and exhaustion. Your psyche knows this, and it is using Karen as a mirror, as a teacher, to show you the gold you have buried. As long as you keep judging Karen, you remain a victim. Poor me, I have to work with this selfish person. The moment you turn the focus inward and ask, what is her behavior trying to teach me about myself? You reclaim your power. You move from projection to integration. This mechanism is at play everywhere. Think of the parent who is constantly annoyed by their lazy teenager who just wants to lie on the couch and listen to music. Often, that parent is someone who has completely disowned their own need for rest and play. They're a compulsive doer, and their child's effortless being is a powerful trigger for their own suppressed longing to just stop. The judgment of the child's laziness is a projection of their own exiled need for stillness. This is why Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Your triggers are not random. They are a perfectly tailored curriculum designed by your own psyche to lead you home to the parts of yourself you have abandoned. The people who annoy you most are not your enemies. They are your unwitting gurus, your most dedicated, if frustrating, spiritual teachers. They are holding a mirror. And the work of shadow integration begins with the courage to finally look.
We've seen how the people who irritate us most are often mirrors for our own disowned darkness. But the mechanism of projection is not limited to negative traits. In fact, one of the most poignant and powerful forms of projection involves the light we have refused to own. The shadow is not just a container for our rage and selfishness. It is also the dusty attic where we have stored away our greatest gifts, our brightest potentials, and our most authentic powers. This is what is known as the golden shadow. The good girl archetype, the people pleaser, is not just taught to suppress her bad qualities. She is also taught to suppress her good ones if they are deemed threatening to others. She learns not to be too smart for fear of intimidating men or making her friends feel insecure. She learns not to be too ambitious for fear of being seen as aggressive or unfeminine. She learns not to be too creative or unconventional for fear of being seen as weird or too much. She learns not to be too powerful because her power might disrupt the delicate balance of her family system or her workplace. So she takes her own gold, her intelligence, her ambition, her creativity, her leadership, and she buries it deep in the shadow. She tells herself, "That's not me. I'm just a simple, helpful person." But the psyche longs for wholeness. It wants this buried gold to be brought into the light. So, just as it does with the negative shadow, it projects this disowned light onto the screen of the external world. It makes you see your own hidden brilliance in other people. This is the mechanism of positive projection. It manifests as that feeling of intense, almost obsessive admiration or idealization you feel towards certain people. It's not just a casual respect. It is a feeling of awe. It is the feeling you get when you watch a powerful, charismatic speaker on a stage and think, "Wow, she is incredible. I could never do that." It is the feeling you get when you see an artist who has fearlessly followed their creative passion and you think, "How brave. I wish I had that kind of courage." It is the feeling you get when you see a friend who starts her own successful business and you feel a mix of intense admiration and a secret, painful sting of envy. That feeling, that combination of, "Wow, they are amazing," and "I could never be that," is the calling card of the golden shadow. The person you are idealizing has become a screen for your own projected potential. You are not just seeing them. You are seeing a reflection of the powerful, brilliant, courageous part of yourself that you were taught to disown. Your soul is using them as a mirror to show you what you are capable of. The admiration is a homing signal. The envy is a map. They are both pointing to the treasure you have buried within yourself. Let's look at Jessica, the introverted people pleaser who works in HR. She secretly dreams of being a writer, but has always told herself it's an impractical fantasy. She has a favorite author, a woman who writes with raw, unapologetic honesty about the female experience. Jessica reads every book this author writes. She follows her on social media. She feels an intense connection to her, a deep admiration. She tells her friends, "This author is a genius. She's so brave to write these things." This is a positive projection. The author is embodying the very qualities Jessica has exiled to her own shadow. The courage to have a unique voice, the permission to be honest and messy, the power to claim her own creative gifts without apology. Jessica's intense admiration is not just about the author. It is her own inner writer, her golden shadow, crying out to be seen and released from its cage. The work of reclaiming the golden shadow is one of the most joyful and life-affirming parts of this journey. It is the process of taking back your own light. The practice is very similar to working with negative projections. In your journal, create an entry titled, "The People I Admire Are My Possibilities." Step 1, identify your heroes. List 3 to 5 people whom you deeply admire. They can be famous people or people you know personally. Who do you have a girl crush on? Who do you secretly envy? Who makes you think, I wish I could be like that? Step 2. Name the golden qualities. Next to each name, list the specific, tangible qualities that you admire in them. Be as specific as possible. Not just, she's confident, but the way she walks into a room and owns it. Not just, he's creative, but his ability to generate new ideas without fear of failure. Not just, she's a good leader, but the way she inspires her team and isn't afraid to make difficult decisions. Step 3, see the reflection. Now read over your list of golden qualities and allow yourself to entertain a radical and powerful thought. These are not just qualities that exist out there in other people. These are aspects of your own dormant potential. This is the list of the qualities of your own golden shadow. You're admiring your own exiled self. Sit with that for a moment. Let it land. It might feel uncomfortable or egotistical. The good girl programming will want to reject it. That's okay. Just stay with the possibility. Step 4, the micro-activation. The final step is to choose one of those golden qualities and ask yourself, what is one tiny, low-stakes, almost playful action I can take this week to experience just 1% of this quality in my own life? You are not trying to become your hero overnight. You are simply conducting a small experiment. If you admire someone's creative courage, your action might be to spend 15 minutes doodling in a notebook with no intention of ever showing it to anyone. If you admire someone's adventurous spirit, your action might be to try a new type of food or visit a new neighborhood in your own city. If you admire someone's powerful voice, your action might be to raise your hand and ask one question in your next team meeting. These small, seemingly insignificant acts are incredibly powerful. You are sending a message to your unconscious. You are telling your golden shadow, I see you. I am making a space for you. It is safe to come out now. You are beginning to embody the light you have so long been able to admire from a distance. This is how you start to integrate your own brilliance. It is how you stop being just a fan of other people's lives and start becoming the hero of your own.
We have illuminated the mechanism of projection. We see how we unconsciously cast our own disowned darkness and our own hidden light onto the people around us. This understanding is the key. But insight without action is merely a pleasant intellectual exercise. The true work lies in the courageous and often uncomfortable process of withdrawing your projections. This is the advanced practice of taking responsibility for your own inner world. It is the act of taking back the movie you have been projecting onto the screen of others and realizing it was your own film all along. So, what does this process actually look like? It begins with radical ownership. The next time you find yourself in the grip of a powerful projection, either intense judgment or intense idealization, you pause. You take out your journal. You do the work we've outlined. You identify the trigger. You name the quality. You find the hidden gold or the disowned darkness. And then you perform a simple but revolutionary act of speech, either on the page or silently to yourself. You say the words, "The selfishness I see in them is my own disallowed self-respect. The arrogance I see in them is my own disowned confidence. The courage I admire in them is my own sleeping courage. The freedom I envy in them is my own unlived freedom." You are, in essence, calling the energy home. You are acknowledging that the source of the emotional charge is not out there in them, but in here, within you. This is not an act of condoning the other person's bad behavior. If someone is genuinely acting in a harmful way, you can still recognize that.
but you are separating their behavior from your disproportionate emotional reaction to it. You are taking ownership of your reaction, because your reaction is where your own personal work lies. Your reaction is the gateway to your own shadow. As you begin to practice this, something remarkable and sometimes unsettling happens. The world begins to change. Not because the world itself has changed, but because you have changed the lens through which you are viewing it. When you start to own your own capacity for selfishness, that is, for healthy boundary setting, the selfish people in your life suddenly seem less monstrous. They might still be inconsiderate, but they no longer hold the same godlike power to ruin your day. The emotional charge dissipates. They cease to be villains in your story and simply become people, flawed, complex people, just like you. This is an incredible liberation. You take back the enormous amount of psychic energy you were wasting on judging them, and you can now invest that energy in your own life. Similarly, when you start to own your own golden shadow, the people you once idealized also begin to change. They come down off the pedestal you placed them on. You stop seeing them as magical beings with powers you could never possess, and you start seeing them as human beings who simply had the courage to activate a potential that also lives within you. This can be a painful process. It can feel like a loss of innocence, a disillusionment, but it is a necessary step towards your own empowerment. It moves you from being a passive admirer to an active participant. You stop worshiping their light, and you start cultivating your own. This practice of withdrawing projections will fundamentally transform your relationships. It is the end of the blame game. You can no longer indulge in the satisfying but powerless story of being a victim to your difficult boss, your needy friend, or your inconsiderate partner. You start to see that every relationship is a co-creation, and you must take responsibility for your part in the dynamic. You realize that people can only cross your boundaries if you don't have a fence. They can only take advantage of your energy if you offer it up freely. This ownership is not about self-blame. It is about self-empowerment. It is the realization that if you are a co-creator of the problem, you also hold the power to be a co-creator of the solution. Let's imagine Chloe in her marriage. She has spent years resentfully projecting onto her husband, seeing him as lazy and unhelpful because he doesn't seem to see all the invisible work she does around the house. Through this work, she realizes she is projecting her own disowned need for rest. She also realizes that her helpfulness has enabled the very dynamic she resents. She has never clearly asked for what she needs. She has just hoped he would magically read her mind. So she withdraws the projection. She stops focusing on his laziness, and she takes an empowered action. She sits down with him, not with anger, but with a clear, vulnerable request. I am feeling overwhelmed and exhausted by the housework. I need help. Could we work together to divide these tasks more equitably? This conversation is terrifying for a people-pleaser to have, but it is the only path to a true adult partnership. She is no longer projecting her shadow onto him. She is inviting him into a conscious, collaborative relationship. This is the ultimate promise of working with your projections. It is a path to seeing the world and the people in it with more clarity, compassion, and nuance. It dissolves the black and white thinking of the ego and opens you up to the complex reality of the human experience. It allows you to take back your power, your anger, your grief, your light. It forces you to grow up, to take responsibility, to become the sovereign of your own inner kingdom. It is a cornerstone of the journey of individuation. It is how you stop being a screen for other people's movies and a director of movies about them, and finally become the star of your own. We have ventured deep into one of Carl Jung's most profound and practical concepts, the mechanism of projection. We have seen that the world is a mirror, constantly reflecting back to us the parts of our own psyche that we have yet to own. We have learned to see our most intense emotional reactions, both our harsh judgments and our breathless admirations, not as objective truths about others, but as valuable clues about ourselves. They are a map pointing directly to the disowned darkness of our shadow and the buried treasure of our golden shadow. And we have discovered that the work is not to change the world, but to withdraw our projections from it, to call our energy home, and to take radical ownership of our own inner landscape. This is one of the most empowering and also one of the most challenging aspects of all deep psychological work. It is empowering because it moves you from a position of a powerless victim to that of a conscious co-creator. You are no longer at the mercy of the difficult people in your life. You realize that your freedom is not dependent on them changing. Your freedom is dependent on your willingness to look in the mirror they're holding up and to do your own inner work. This is the heart of true sovereignty. But it is also challenging. It is challenging because it requires you to let go of the satisfying, self-righteous story of blame. It requires you to take responsibility for your part in the dysfunctional dynamics of your life. It demands a level of honesty and self-awareness that can be deeply uncomfortable. It is far easier to complain about your selfish colleague than it is to look at your own underdeveloped capacity for self-respect. It is far easier to admire a courageous artist from afar than it is to face your own fear of creative expression. But the easier path of projection is a prison. The more difficult path of ownership is the only path to true freedom. As you begin to practice this, be gentle with yourself. You have spent a lifetime projecting. It is an automatic, deeply conditioned habit. You will not stop overnight. The goal is simply to catch yourself more quickly, to notice the emotional charge, to pause and to ask that powerful question, what part of me is this person showing me? Each time you do this, you weaken the grip of the unconscious. You strengthen the muscle of your own awareness. You become less reactive and more responsive. You begin to see people as they are, not as who you need them to be for the drama of your own inner world. But this work of owning your shadow, your anger, your selfishness, your needs, can bring up another powerful feeling: guilt. As you start to set your first boundaries, as you begin to honor your own needs, the old good girl programming will scream at you. It will tell you that you are being a bad person, that you are hurting others. This is a critical juncture. How do you give yourself permission to feel your anger, to be selfish, to take up space, without being consumed by guilt? How do you learn to be compassionate with yourself as you navigate this new, unfamiliar territory? Learning to give yourself permission is a radical act of self-love, and cultivating the ability to do so without drowning in guilt, this is the essential skill we will explore together next.